Yesterday we talked about primary objects and secondary objects. Although they are called primary or secondary, whenever they are present, predominant, clear, that means they are the most important object for you at that moment of time. So when we pay attention to them, especially on the sitting meditation, this primary object has to be noted carefully, thoroughly, clearly, precisely, to see them as they really are. However they change, whatever that's going on. And it also be good actually that whenever you start the sitting meditation, you directly direct the mind towards the primary objects. Immediately you go inside, you sit down, don't waste too much time in trying to relax for too long. Just sit down, get ready, all your legs are all done, cushion is all settled, everything. Then just sit there, then directly go into the rising and falling or the primary objects, and start to pay noticing them carefully, thoroughly. Sometimes some yogis, when they come to this object, they take their own sweet time. I've seen in the past retreats that yogis, when they start the sitting meditation, they sit there, they don't do anything yet. They just breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, relax. Breathing in and then relax. They do it for 15-20 minutes. Somehow or another, some yogis in the past I've met, not in my retreat. If you are doing like that, your interview will be a hard time for you. But I've seen in the past other places, yogis are being instructed that whenever they start the sitting meditation, they relax first. So they relax everything off. All the development from the walking meditation, all the clarity, all the concentrated mindfulness that you have done with the walking meditation. But when it comes to the sitting meditation, then they just everything just relax first, relax. Every sitting they do like that. Actually, they are very ready to notice the object, but instruction is being given in such a way that yogis are taught to notice, to relax. While you're in the retreat, like what we are doing right now, intensive retreat, you're not supposed to do like this. And if you do like that, many times you'll find that your mind going to be very sleepy, drowsy. The mindfulness cannot carry forward to the sitting meditation. So that particular group of yogi, that's what I've seen. Sleepiness. How come after a week or 10 days, how come the sleepiness is so strong? I was not the main teacher at that time, another monk another sayadaw was the main teacher. So yogis been year in, year out, going through meditation. Every time come to a retreat, sleepy, and almost like 80% of the yogis come in and talk about sleepiness. And this is something strange. Normally, if yogi were to do it carefully, thoroughly, and make everything continuous from a walking to sitting, sitting to walking again. If you keep it continuous, then usually for a next after about 5 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days maybe, then your mind tends to settle down. Here we are already in a week. We start off like Monday night. So here tonight is already Monday night. You are still alive. Good. Tough, but you're still alive. Yeah, it can be done. After a week. Comparative to a week ago, your mind is not clear. Do not know what you are doing. Now at least the mind can able to settle with the walking, can settle with some degree of the sitting meditation, which is not bad actually. In that sense. So, taking up this primary object, especially in the sitting, so don't wait. Immediately you sit down, get yourself, gently ready, everything, directly start the engine, pressing the accelerator already. Start noting whatever is going on there. Then it become very helpful. Then if the rising and falling is not clear, after a while, then look for secondary objects like sitting and touching, or sensation like heat or cold that arises. Then note them. Heat, or cold. Or notice the pulling sensation perhaps that's arising, or maybe sitting and touching, touching, sitting, and note them as clear as you can. When the pain arises, then noticing the pain. In between, if the rising and fall, if in between, if let's say the rising and falling become clear again, then you go back to a rising and falling. So you try to keep the momentum up for the whole sitting meditation as best as you can. So in that way, the progress will come much more clearer, will come uh, faster, maybe. So, in the beginning part, it's good that for us to differentiate which one is primary and secondary objects, at least on the theory part. But as I said, as we get more advanced into this practice, then the time primary or secondary is actually not important anymore. Because at that time, you will only see the forces, you will only see the movements, you only see the pressure, you only see whatever that's going on there. Without your mind labeling whether this is rising and falling, or this is pain, or whether this is pressure, the mind just keep noting and noting and noting. But in the beginning part, we should not do that. If you try to do what I'm saying just now, then it will be counterproductive. In the beginning part, it's good to put the labeling again and again to your objects. Whether you walk from here, even you walk to the dining hall, right step, left step, right step, left step. The eyes want to see, at least bring it back again to 5 feet or 6 feet in front of you. You got to be disciplined. Mentally, physically, you got to be disciplined in order to do this practice. This is part of the whole, sila, morality. In the Noble Eightfold Path, there's sila, samadhi, and panya. Morality, concentration, and wisdom. So, just by doing, keep your eyes not looking here and there, avoid all the talking, then it'll be very good for all of you. All right. What else are we going to talk tonight? Tonight, let's look into another topic. The topic on acceptance. Now you see, we know the word acceptance, but when practice it, it's not so easy. Let's say pain now. How far can you accept? How far can your mind stretch? How far can the mind tolerate the pain? Now, acceptance is an extension of mindfulness. It's an extension of mindfulness. I mean, the way I use this acceptance is for the sake of this vipassana meditation. But there are times, Dhamma talks out there, people use the word acceptance for a lot of things. In the worldly life, you're talking about things are not going well, suffering here and there. Yes, we can talk about that, but it wouldn't be, in a way, benefit to your meditation. But in the sense that the acceptance part, we're going to see that how we are, whether we realize it or don't realize it, that we have been doing this acceptance for some time. Because after all, it's just an extension of this mindfulness. Now you see, usually acceptance, acceptance, when you talk about acceptance, in terms of mindfulness practice, it covers every form of object, whether the object is pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Okay? Whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. But you will see that whenever it comes to the unpleasant objects, when it comes to the unpleasant objects, then the significance of acceptance will be more, will be clearer, will be more significant at this moment of time. When things are unpleasant to you. On the other hand, when an object is pleasant and is okay, then that time, sometimes we forget about the acceptance, but that time the acceptance is not so clear, but the mind tends to narrow down on certain things. Tends to narrow down, and then they want to see things as what they want to see, not what is really happening there. Now, let's take some examples. Let's look into some example. Let's look into all this thinking mind. Let's look into thinking mind and see how we can deal with the thinking mind and also overcome the thinking mind with this acceptance. Acceptance is part of it. Now, perhaps in the beginning part of your retreat, there may be a lot of thinking and also a lot of sleepiness also. Either you're not sleeping, you're thinking. After a few days later, then only the mind starts to settle down. And yet, there are still like thoughts floating here and there. It's not like totally zero, but comparatively to your 1 week ago, and then it has significantly reduced, which is good. So usually about this time, after about a week or 10 days, and the momentum of the mindfulness has come into somewhat continuous, then it will be good that we begin to look into the mental objects also. One of the clearest mental object is the thinking mind. Is the thoughts of past, present, or future. And we have to deal with them. Now, one of the wrong things that yogis normally do is that when there comes into a lot of thinking, let's say like that you sit down for that particular sitting, and then thoughts keep on going, rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling one after another. Then usually yogis want to, I must not think, I don't have the time, I come here, I must not. How come there's so much thinking today? Yesterday was so good, this morning was so good, this afternoon, how come? What did I eat? What did I do? And then you get all kinds of causes lah. It's just to get some answers why you think so much at that time. Yeah. And then you don't want that thinking. I want, how come my sitting this morning was so good, but now, how come this thinking is so much like that? What is wrong? So sometimes you cannot find the answers. You blame this, you blame that, you blame that. The too cold, somebody blame too hot, somebody blame the food, somebody blame the teacher, whatever. They got something to blame except themselves. They always got something to blame inside the mind. So the first thing is that the acceptance part is not there anymore. You always try to use a lot of all this of your own conceptual thoughts to cover what is happening right now. Because why? Behind it, you don't like the thinking to be there. The aversion is already there, but you don't see the aversion is there. Another type of yogis is that when these thoughts coming in, they try to suppress it. They try to suppress it in the sense that, like, I must not think. The thinking coming, I must not, Some yogis have that habit to they're taking this thing, wait for the thinking to come and then pound, and then come pound. Like inside there they got the ready already, the stick. Some people are like that. Some people, not all yogis, but there are people like that. There are yogis just get ready for the thinking only. Come. As if like you're already on feast and you try to fight with the thinking. In other words, you're not accepting the whole situation. Behind it, you try to suppress it. And that way, you're going to fail. Every time the thoughts come, every time the thinking comes in, every retreat you go there, because this is a force of habit, mental habit. And if you do that again and again, then every time thoughts come in, you want to suppress it. You don't want to see it. You want to subdue it with a lot of force. And sometimes that a lot of force does not come with mindfulness. It comes with a lot of aversion behind it. Some yogis have that strong expectation. Their expectation is they put a very high bar. They say, this sitting, I must not have thinking. If thinking comes in, it's a bad sitting. They already put the judgment there already. The people who are perfectionists. And these type of people, they're going to have a lot of heartache in the meditation. Because every little thoughts Even they can notice other objects well, but little thoughts come in, they already, no good sitting already. Yeah. They're very narrow down onto this small thing. But the other things which is going well, they don't see that something worthwhile. Now this is the nature of sometimes the human mind. And you give them let's say a piece of white paper, then a black dot in the center. They always see the black dot. They don't see that the white is all around it. You know what I mean? So do the same thing when it comes to this meditation. A little bit of thinking, or they judge that their meditation is not good. So in other words, the acceptance of it is very weak. The acceptance of the thoughts are very weak. Now, thinking, whether you are thinking of the past, present, future, whether you are thinking about the images that arises, for example, like your parents maybe passed away a long time ago, but it arises very clear. Also, like a past memory that you have may be very clear, or in the future, maybe you have not seen it, but kind of a very clear imagination. Or maybe in the present time that you are here, perhaps you are sitting here, you can able to visualize the dining hall or the places and so on. So here, the thoughts that arises, those type of thoughts that arises, you have to be, in a way, in the beginning part, you have to be, at least, you know that the thoughts are there. You know that, you recognize that the thoughts are there, and yet, at the same time, many times I mentioned, you're not into the thinking. You're not into the thoughts. As if like you are standing out and let the thoughts passing through. This, some of the thoughts are like, it comes, it already gone. That one you don't have to worry about it because that one you cannot do anything, which is good. Let it go. Back to the rising and falling, back to whatever is going on. Sometimes you're noticing the rising and falling very clearly, or lifting, pushing, dropping clearly. Then you'll notice that there are floating thoughts passing through. It doesn't disturb the walking. You can still able to notice, but it kind of like floating through a little bit, then it gone, then you notice the walking, then after that passing through another a few go through. Yeah. So you may notice that, but it doesn't really disturb the whole walking or the sitting. But the one that is strong, it comes in and it stays. The thoughts that stays, that is kind of like going on again and again, or sometimes it goes into a very random thoughts. Sometimes it goes into a very specific thoughts, and it repeats again and again. It could be the faces, it could be the scenery, it could be the incident. Whatever that's going on, sometimes it just repeat again and again and again and again and again. Then here, whatever the thoughts are, you must learn to recognize them as just thinking, or just planning, or just memory. If you can able to catch it, then you notice it as planning, or memory, or history, or creating. Or you can even uh, label it as just restless. Some teachers says that you label it as a defilement. Then sometimes it can be quite helpful because your mind wants to distance itself from a defilement. And you can use this one. If you feel that the Chinese word is more closer to you, this one 杂念, then your mind stays a bit further. Sometimes thinking doesn't have the impact. So you notice it as restless, or you notice as thinking, planning, and so on. Which is good. You notice it in that way. But the thing is that when you notice these things, the object or the creation of the mind can be very clear. They are very clear. It's not as so easy just to ignore all of them. Yeah? Sometimes the memory that arises can be like 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah? But when it comes into meditation, it can be so clear as if like it happens a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And sometimes this memory is not a pleasant memory. And that one is where the acceptance of it has to be strong, especially when all these past memories or past thoughts, which is very difficult. Every time, like when you're out there, let's say, if this type of memory arises, the moment that memory arises, your tears are all flowing down like a waterfall. Calm down. When nobody, the sadness arises. So strong sadness arises. Why? Because you already dwell into it. Already dwell into it, and then all kinds of emotional states go haywire inside there. Yeah? Uh, Especially for those many people who are attached. Now, of course, we are attached to our uh, mothers or parents and so on. Whenever this thing arises, kind of like the emotional state starts to shake, starts to come up already. So this is where you have to take notice. You got to learn to accept those images, because those images, those thoughts, when it comes up, immediately your natural reaction is that you want to suppress this type of thoughts immediately. You don't want to see that, because to you, this type of thoughts brings suffering. This type of thoughts brings emotional entanglement. Difficult to see, and a lot of times we just want to close our mental eye. We just want to see them. That is where non-acceptance is there. Yeah? A non-acceptance. So what should we do then? This type of thoughts. Now, whenever this type of thoughts arises, initially it can be very painful. Initially it can still be painful because it feels very raw, very difficult. Whether the images of the parents or this one. I mean, you don't purposely go and recall them. They will come eventually, They will come eventually. So when it comes, they become a prominent object. The thoughts are prominent object right now. So you let go of the primary object or whatever object, then you notice this object. Seeing. Perhaps you see an image, you see your mother, you see your parents, you see an incident, or knowing, or memory. And while you're noting it, while you're noting that object, initial part, you try to face with it. You try to confront it. And here, when you're confronting it, this type of image, you should not push it away. You should not push it away because it's painful. You got to confront it. And when you confront it this time, initially, the sadness will still come in. Your tears will still come out. So what you should do? You learn to accept, and you still learn to watch the tears, because it's happening in the present moment, the tears. So what do you do? And then you note the tears, then you feel it. Yeah? If it comes out, your this one's not come out. So what do you do? Feel it also, it drip until your jacket, your hands. You should not move. Let it drip. Let it see what is ever going on. Your job is to see them as they are. So as they are, in beginning partner, you feel the emotional aspect of it. That is where you have to be fully accept the whole state of mind. You have to accept a whole state of mind. Yeah? Now, initially, all these things, when you observe them, they are difficult objects. Some of the things you do not want to remember, but it still arises, whichever the incidents are. But the thing is that if you note them carefully and you watch them carefully, and in the retreats or retreats to come, as your mindfulness starts growing, what happened is that next time these same images will still come up, but now instead of you respond it with a lot of sadness, a lot of emotional entanglement, then the mind respond with it with a lot of mindfulness, a lot of acceptance. You don't forget all these things, no. We don't forget these things. These things is always going to be like that. But how the mind relates to the thoughts has become different. And that is important, because that is where you begin to heal from all this emotional entanglement. And we don't suppress the memory. In the a lot of times, sometimes in people, most of the time you try to suppress that memory instead of you change the way how you respond to it. Then when you suppress it, sooner or later it's going to blow up like a volcano. Yeah. So this is how vipassana change. It doesn't change those memory. It doesn't change those things that have gone through, but it changed how the mind responds to it. It changed in a way that it can able to accept the situation, the whole state of mind. It can change in the sense that there's more forgiveness perhaps inside there. There's change that perhaps there's more kindness also arising from it. Huh? But the thing is that the most important thing for the development is where the mindfulness able to sustain on it, and those memory is not affecting the mind. In other words, the mind can be steady, equilibrium, mindful acceptance. They can able to stay there, and yet the object is still very clear to you. So that takes time. That takes time. In the meantime, you find that as you grow in the mindfulness, this type of thoughts that arises, you find that there's a change in you also. In the sense that initially there's a lot of tears that come out, a lot of sadness that arises. But as the mindfulness grows, as the practice grows, you'll find that the sadness become less, the difficulty, the emotional states become less and less and less over time. Then one of these days, these emotional states become very weak, or it's not there at all. So in other words, you are quite healed from the situation, from that all these thoughts and all this memory. Yeah? So this is good. This is wonderful. Yeah? This is something to do with our psychology too, But we should not stop here. In Vipassana, we just don't stop at its healing process only. We are not just only face to face to it only, which is already very powerful in that sense. So the next thing as a Vipassana meditator is that these thoughts are strong, right? Then the next part is that you pay attention to them. In other words, you see them change. You see them how they change. For example, when you sit down, these thoughts are very strong. And these thoughts are like going one after another, right? So what you should do, you notice it thinking, planning, or memory. It kind of like one after another, one after another, one after another, one after another. And all this time, you're noticing the whole thing. At the same time, you're accepting it, at the same time you are observing what is going on. Yeah, yeah, just accepting only. That means there's some degree of mindfulness, but there's no clear comprehension yet. Yeah, yeah, there's mindfulness, but there's no clear comprehension. It's only when you begin to notice how the thoughts are moving, changing, changing, changing. Sometimes you'll notice that, for example, the thoughts are going faster, change faster. You do not know what's the story anymore. You don't know that it's just changing faster. Sometimes it changes slower. Sometimes it goes stronger. The thoughts, then it go fading, 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 until sometimes you can see the end of the thoughts and then disappear. And when it disappear, mind gone, then what do? Back to the primary object. Yeah. Then you back to the primary object and you notice the primary object. Then next other thoughts that come in, if it's strong, you do the same way. Don't reject it. Don't push it away. Don't ignore it because they are prominent at this point of time. Yeah. Sometimes when some yogis, when these thoughts come in, they only just identify the thoughts. Oh, this thought is a lot of anger. Oh, this thought is a lot of greed. Oh, this thought is a lot of restless mind. Oh, this thought is like that. Yes, they identified it, which is good. But that's all they do. Yeah. And that's all they do. And if you just do like that, you are at the, what I look at it is that you are at the door of Vipassana, but you haven't entered Vipassana. You are at the right door already. You are at the right door, but you haven't crossed over because you're not seeing it again and again. You're not seeing how it changes. You're not seeing how the process is like. The process, the noticing how the process is like, that it turns the noting, it turns the acceptance, the state of mind into a vipassana noting mind. That is where it's missing. A lot of times people do, oh, I do chittanupassana. I do the mental mind, noticing the mind. Okay? Chittanupassana. That is what happened. They they stop at just accepting. They stop at just knowing that this is a great, or this is a happy mind, or this is a very clear mind, or this is a soft mind, or this is a sleepy mind. They accept. But then that's all they do. It's not enough. You got to see how the mind is changing. You see the thoughts going from one after another. Then that time, if you can, just label it as thinking, thinking, planning, planning, planning. Then you sit there as if like a movie go through. Yeah. It's a skill. It is just a skill, something that you have to learn to do. Each and every one of us will do it one way or another. One way or another. But generally is you need to accept them. Don't reject them. Don't attach to them. Don't welcome them. But then just see the thoughts just passing through one after another. How it changed. What happened to it. Huh? So far, can you all follow? Huh? Hopefully tomorrow you all can try. I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts. It's not that you have zero thoughts tomorrow. So at least use the thoughts as a meditation object. Yeah. So this is one of the ways that we learn to accept the thoughts, and after that we notice how the thoughts are changing one after another. In the while you are each change, sometimes the emotional states arises, difficult states, and then sometimes neutral states or whatever it is going on, then you take notice of it. On the other hand, on the opposite side of it, the thoughts that it's very pleasant to you, very nice to you. Perhaps in the past you have gone through a nice vacation, you have a good time and so on, then you want to relive it back again, Yeah. You want to relive inside the story again, all over again, because kind of like fun, isn't it? Kind of very nice. So you welcome the thoughts. So the more the thoughts that you attach to it, and then you sit there, you forgot, and then until you realize, hey, I'm not supposed to think so much. But in the meantime, you already got going through all over the world or outside the world also. So the thing is that we see acceptance here. It's neither you reject the unpleasant one, and also at the same time you don't welcome and attach and crave for the pleasant one. So the same process also, when the pleasant object, the pleasant thoughts that come in, then this time also you got to notice it. Pleasant, 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 or happy, 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 happy. Then see how the thoughts are changing. Until you notice that the happiness slowly and slowly kind of like fade away. Or sometimes the happiness, you notice that it gets stronger and stronger. You keep noting too. You see that thoughts will keep going one after another. So try. This is something that you have to, sooner or later, in this Vipassana meditation, you have to face them. But not in the first few days. In the first few days, I cannot teach you in this way because you don't have mindfulness yet. Mindfulness is so brittle, so fragile, so not continuous. And here, when there's a number of days later, perhaps there's some of us who have able to have developed some degree of mindfulness, then this is something for you to do. Uh, uh, mm. this is one of the things that on the thinking mind that you try to notice them. And when you notice them in this way, you find that noticing the thinking itself becomes the arising of mindfulness, of more mindfulness. You use the thinking mind as a stepping stone for more mindfulness to arise. That'd be interesting, isn't it? Might as well you do something about it. After all, you're sitting already. Yeah. So that would be very helpful. Yeah. To calm, not only just to see the process, but also to calm the thinking mind. Yeah. Now during the walking, well, sometimes if the thinking mind arises, uh, what you can do is that you stop, and then also you do the same thing like what just now I mentioned. You stop and then you pay attention to the thoughts. Maybe you want to close your eyes, then you notice thinking, planning, desire, wanting, dislike, unhappy, aversion, anger. Then you notice what is going on there. So you let see the thoughts are passing through. That'll be good. That's one way you can do that. But in the walking meditation also, sometimes these thoughts come in, and you find that if you want to change your steps, sometimes, for example, if you do the lifting, pushing, dropping very carefully, very notice, while it's happening in this way, you notice that a lot of random thoughts are going through. So what you should do is that sometimes you just need to, instead of noticing the thoughts, just change the speed. Sometimes you change to a slightly faster speed. Maybe you go back to two-phase walking meditation. To a less noticing. Sometimes because of that, the mind settle down. The mind settle down automatically because of you change the pace, or you don't over pushing onto the lifting, pushing, dropping. Sometimes the mind is not ready. Sometimes the noting mind is not ready for the lifting, pushing, dropping. But at times we are forcing it into noticing this lifting, pushing, dropping very thoroughly, precisely. But the mind is like inside there, all the tension is building up. With the tension building up, the thoughts are coming up. So the thoughts are coming. If you notice it in this way, sometimes all you need to do is just go slightly faster. Yeah? Until the body is relaxed, is clear, then just carry on for a while until you're sure enough, then you slow down again. Yeah? Just like driving. You must learn how to. Yeah, I use this like changing of gear, but it's not, as I said, it's not a good example anymore. Nowadays, you all know it's just press the accelerator only. The changing of gear is all done by automatic transmission already now. But those days, before all the automatic gear come in, you must know how to change whether first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. Yeah? If you try to start off your car with a third gear or fifth gear, what happened to the car? The whole front, your engine will start to. So you must start off with the right gear. So that's why sometimes over time, in this practice, you learn to feel. You learn to feel yourself whether is it enough for you to go slower, or sometimes go slightly faster, or sometimes just to maintain that two phase or one phase for a longer period of time. Yeah, you got to learn to feel it. Yeah. So this is on something on the thoughts. Huh? Something on the thoughts. So you must learn to accept them, and yet at the same time you don't reject them, you don't push them away. You just learn to see them as they are, really as they are, to see how they are changing. This is one acceptance. What else we cannot accept? There are also people who are not able to accept the opposite of all this thinking mind. Then it's the sleepiness. How come 1 week later I'm still so sleepy? Every yogi sits so straight up. Here I am. We try to compare with other yogis, and then we get our our kind of confidence also is down. Our motivation is not there. How come so sleepy? Have I eat too much? Have I been too tired? Mopping here, mopping there. Have I not sleeping enough last night? I thought I slept so full hour, very good sleep, but how come? Come into the hall still sleeping. This morning I woke up, I was very clear, very alert. How many times I've seen yogis that they wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or even 4:30 in the morning, they wake up very fresh. Then by the time they hit the meditation cushion, by 5:30, 5:45, oh, how come so heavy? Why? Sometimes the sleepiness, sometimes we go on the long-term practice. Sometimes the whole day is sitting. It can be like, here you are doing like maybe 6 to 7 sittings per day. 6 to 7 sittings per day, sometimes there's only one sitting that is clear only. All the other sittings, you do not know what you are doing also. Either sleepiness or either a lot of thinking. So after a few days, you get quite frustrated. Why? How come? Sometimes throughout the day, only half of one sitting is only clear. The other half and the other rest of the sitting also is not so clear. Some days it happened like that. Some days. Some days, 2 or 3 sittings are quite clear. But as you progress further, as you progress deeper, actually the clarity on the sitting and the walking and the continuity throughout the whole day becomes better, more continuous. The sitting becomes more fruitful, more interesting. Like out of like 7 sittings per day, maybe 5 sittings are clear. First two sittings maybe not so clear because it can be due to tiredness of the body. Uh, This is how yogis go through. Normally, yogis go through. Uh, if you, let's say, first day, second day, you come in, I ask you, got sleepiness or not? No sleepiness at all. No sleepiness at all. I'll be start thinking, I don't know whether this person is okay or not. Something wrong. Yeah. Sometimes people suppress the sleepiness. Once in a while, not many. This one is not many, but once in a while, there are people who really don't like the sleepiness. They suppress the sleepiness because sometimes people have that idea to be a ideal yogi. Ideal yogi, no sleepiness, no bending. Sui sui, it's you sit down also all very straight now. Very, very, very. Sometimes you out there you look at it, wow, otak thing, or excellent yogi. I mean, the facially looking, but just on the surface level, but you never know what is going on internally. I've met with these yogis for many times actually in the past. Yogis is so straight, but internally, what happened is that all kinds of imagination. The Buddha flying. Then they got all kinds of things except vipassana. But look so straight. But when it comes into the interview, oh my goodness. There are people like that, because you can sometimes could see them. The sleepiness is coming in. They they hold their body and they do not want to have that. So, other words, a lot of times they are trying to suppress the sleepiness. They find that every of this sleepiness, of course, when they read in the suttas, the Buddha says, this drowsiness, this one is defilement, yes. So you must not let it come. And the problem is with us, with the yogis, is that they use anger to suppress the sleepiness. You use something that because the sleepiness is irritating to you. You try to use an anger. You try to use something that you dislike to cover something that is unwholesome. At the same time, also like the thinking mind, also the same thing. They don't like this thinking mind. So what they do is that they press it. Behind it is just only they don't like the thinking mind. And they don't like the thinking, so they suppress it. So do the same thing with people. Once in a while, we meet with people who don't like the sleepiness because the sleepiness has wreaked havoc in their meditation in the past. Usually, sleepiness becomes less if your body is okay. If your body is healthy in a certain or in general sense is healthy, then if you do the walking continuously, one day after another, usually the sleepiness will start to gets less. For especially in the period when you're alert the time, you get less. You're more able to notice things better. But there are some people when they do certain walking meditation, they don't do it right. They just do simple right step, left step, and then just walk around in the temple. They don't really take notice of what is going on, and then normally they are sitting will be a lot of drowsiness or a lot of thinking. After maybe a week or two, will be the same. No much of a progress at all. So they get frustrated. So they get frustrated until sometimes they get fed up with the sleepiness. They just suppress the sleepiness because that is what they know what to do. The rest of other things they do not know how to arouse the effort. They do not know how to do the walking meditation. They do not know how to do the daily activities properly. So the only thing that they do is just suppress it, or grit the teeth and just. Uh, so they don't realize that a lot of this thing is happening. The the anger or the irritation is happening. The aversion of it is happening. So when it comes in, this type of sleepiness comes in also. You have to pay attention to them. You got to learn to accept them. Some yogis thought accepting means you just, they come, let them come, come, and then you don't do anything. Then you just sleep with it. That's not acceptance at all. That's not acceptance. Some yogis have thought that acceptance is just, okay, since sleepiness comes in, that's just don't do anything. Just I'm accepting. I'm not pushing it away, but I'm just accepting. Then the sleepiness is going to knock you off. Acceptance doesn't mean that you just let it go. Acceptance, there's a certain degree of effort to be there. And at the same time, this time is a trick, is to begin to learn to notice the sleepiness also. So how you notice the sleepiness? When the mind becomes dark, heavy, and then you notice heavy, 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 heavy. There's different types of sleepiness. If you happen to pay attention, if you don't pay attention, it's only sleepiness only. If you happen to notice the sleepiness, you find that the sleepiness can be very heavy, then you cannot do anything. Sometimes it's there, but you can still do something. Sometimes it's just laziness only. Sometimes it's just like completely blank already. I think we stop here for tonight. I think continue tomorrow. Some of you are already sleepy already. The more that I talk, the more sleepy you all got. So enough for tonight. All right.